Something unusual just unfolded around Cardi B, and it instantly caught everyone's attention. What looked like a normal public appearance quickly turned into a moment people can't stop analyzing. Cardi B was once again seen in the orbit of Stefon Diggs, and the timing of it all has sparked a wave of speculation online. Because just before this, whispers were already circulating about Stefon Diggs being connected to another woman. That alone had already set social media on edge. So when Cardi B reappeared in this space, it didn't feel random to viewers. It felt loaded, almost like part of a bigger, unfinished story. Online reactions split immediately. Some fans are confused, others are frustrated, and many are asking the same question. Why does this pattern keep repeating? There's a growing belief among observers that this isn't just about romance anymore. To them, it feels like something deeper, an emotional loop that keeps pulling her back into the same type of situation, just with different people playing the role. Supporters who once defended her are now sounding more concerned. They argue Cardi B doesn't need validation from anyone and should be in a phase of stability after everything she's already been through publicly. The Offset chapter alone was messy enough in the public eye, and many believe that Era had already taught enough hard lessons. But others see it differently. They say she has a habit of giving second chances, even when the outcome is unpredictable. And now, they believe that same pattern may be repeating itself again. What's fueling the conversation even more is the way people interpret her behavior. Not just who she's seen with, but what it represents. To some, it's no longer about relationships themselves. It's about emotional security, identity, and whether she feels grounded on her own. And that's where the debate gets uncomfortable. Because instead of looking like a simple connection between two public figures, the situation is being framed online as something more symbolic, almost like a cycle she can't seem to break out of. Then came the moment that really intensified everything. At her DC event, Stefon Diggs appeared with his circle, and later they all ended up out in the city. That's when things started to look different on camera. Stefon Diggs was seen leaving separately, heading to his car alone, while Cardi B remained behind with her team. Her vehicle was already prepared, waiting as expected. But instead of following the usual routine, something shifted in real time. And that small change in direction is exactly what set social media off again. Her entire energy shifts in that moment. Without waiting for her team, Cardi B suddenly moves forward, breaking away from the usual setup. Instead of heading toward her prepared car, she makes a direct line toward Stefon Diggs' vehicle. It almost feels intentional, like she's locked onto something in the distance. People watching can literally see it happen in real time. She notices where Stefon Diggs is, hesitates for a split second, and then commits to the direction she's chosen. That pause is what stands out, because right at that exact moment, a photographer calls out a question linked to the ongoing Offset situation near the casino. The timing couldn't be more tense. Cardi B reacts instantly. Her expression tightens, her face shifting like she's weighing whether to respond or shut it down completely. For a brief second, it looks like she might fire back at the comment, but she doesn't. Instead, she holds it in. No response. No pause in movement. Just a sharp look, a silent reaction that says more than words could, and she keeps walking forward. And then she continues straight towards Stefon Diggs' car, leaving the question hanging in the air behind her. Cardi B doesn't respond to the comment. She simply reacts with a brief expression and continues walking forward. As she moves closer, the situation becomes more noticeable. Instead of heading toward her assigned vehicle, she approaches Stefon Diggs' car directly and leans in to speak with him while he is still inside. From an outside perspective, the moment appears unexpected. Her direction changes in real time, and she bypasses her usual routine with her team, who remain standing nearby as the situation unfolds. Her vehicle is already positioned and ready, as expected. But she does not enter it. Instead, she redirects towards Stefon Diggs, shifting the flow of the moment entirely. The timing draws attention, especially because of the surrounding context and previous public discussions linked to both names. As she moves, the coordination between her and her team briefly pauses, adding to the confusion of those watching. Even the small details stand out, such as the slight delay as she reaches the vehicle area and the brief moment before access to the car is fully ready. For observers, it becomes one of those situations where a simple public interaction turns into a widely discussed moment, mainly because of how unexpected and unplanned it appears in real time. This discussion isn't necessarily coming from a place of judgment. Rather, it reflects how some viewers are interpreting recent public moments involving Cardi B and her relationships. Many people feel she has historically shown strong commitment in her personal life, especially during her relationship with Offset, where she often appeared consistent and invested over time. Because of that past, some observers expected a more clearly defined shift in how she approaches new public situations. However, recent appearances and online discussions have led to renewed conversation about patterns in her personal life. Some fans believe they are seeing recurring dynamics that raise questions about emotional direction and decision-making, while others emphasize that only she fully understands her circumstances. At the same time, a large portion of the audience stresses that Cardi B is fully entitled to make her own choices without external pressure. Their concern, as they express it, is more about wanting her to feel secure, balanced, and confident in her personal decisions rather than being influenced by outside expectations. This conversation has also been connected by fans to earlier public moments and interviews where she spoke about relationships and priorities, which some people interpreted in different ways. In parallel, there is ongoing debate about whether public figures are fairly expected to address or clarify personal matters at the same level that audiences speculate about them. Some believe accountability and public clarity should come from all sides involved, while others argue that not every personal situation requires public explanation. Overall, the reaction reflects a mix of curiosity, concern, and speculation from online audiences, shaped largely by public appearances and fragmented information rather than confirmed details. She doesn't respond verbally. Instead, she briefly reacts with an expression and continues walking. As the moment unfolds, she moves towards Stefon Diggs' vehicle rather than heading directly to her own. She approaches the car, opens the door, and leans in to speak with him while he remains seated inside. From an outside perspective, the situation appears unexpected due to the shift in her direction and routine. Her team remains nearby with her prepared vehicle, which suggests a different plan was initially in place. For observers, the timing and sequence of movements stand out, particularly the change in direction and the brief pause before entering any vehicle. The interaction becomes a focal point of online discussion largely because of how it plays out in real time and how quickly the situation deviates from what would normally be expected in a coordinated exit. After everything that has already played out publicly, the situation has naturally sparked conversation and confusion among viewers. Many people are trying to understand what they are seeing in real time and why certain moments appear inconsistent with past public statements. Some observers point to comments Cardi B has made in the past about the standards she expects in relationships, including the idea that someone she is involved with should have stability and direction in their own life. Because of that, recent discussions online have led some people to compare past statements with current public appearances. However, it's also important to note that interpretations vary widely. While some viewers are focused on perceived patterns, others strongly emphasize that personal choices in relationships are complex and cannot be fully understood from short clips or public moments. Many fans also reference her previous relationship history, particularly with Offset, as part of the broader context of why people analyze her current situation more closely. Still, these comparisons are based on public perception rather than confirmed facts about her private life. At the same time, a large portion of the audience stresses that she has full autonomy over her decisions and does not need external approval for her personal life. Their concern, as expressed online, is more about emotional well-being and stability rather than criticism. Overall, the conversation reflects a mix of curiosity, speculation, and concern, driven by limited public information and amplified by social media interpretation rather than complete context. Some fans had suggested that Cardi B's tour could serve as a fresh reset, a way to refocus, move forward, and step into a new phase of her career and personal life. Because of that, certain recent public moments have led to renewed discussion about whether that shift is actually happening. Instead, the conversation online has started to circle back to familiar themes. Rather than focusing only on past events, people are now questioning recurring patterns they believe they are noticing over time. At one of her shows, Cardi B made a light-hearted comment that some viewers interpreted in different ways. While it was clearly said in a joking tone, it still became part of the broader online discussion about her personal life and priorities. As these conversations continue, some fans have also begun comparing expectations with reality, especially when it comes to how public figures manage their relationships in the spotlight. In particular, attention has been drawn to how differently situations are perceived, depending on who is involved and what has been publicly shown. There is also ongoing speculation online about whether certain individuals should address public narratives more directly, although no official statements or confirmations support many of these claims. As a result, most of the discussion remains based on interpretation rather than verified information. In another widely discussed moment, Cardi B was seen interacting with Stefon after a public appearance, which quickly became a focal point on social media. The interaction drew attention mainly because of how it unfolded in real time and how quickly it became part of online debate. As always with public figures, short clips and isolated moments often lead to broader assumptions, even when the full context is not available. This has led to divided opinions, some viewing it as overanalysis, while others see it as part of a larger narrative being built from repeated public sightings. Ultimately, the situation reflects how quickly public perception can form around celebrities based on limited moments, and how those interpretations can spread widely even without confirmed details. Her team appears ready for the usual exit routine, expecting her to enter her assigned vehicle. However, the sequence of events shifts when she does not follow that expected path. Instead of proceeding directly to her car, Cardi B moves towards Stefon's vehicle. The change in direction happens in real time, creating noticeable confusion among those nearby, including members of her team who were positioned for a standard departure. Her prepared vehicle remains open and waiting, but she does not enter it. Instead, she continues toward the other car, altering the flow of the moment entirely. Observers online have focused on the timing of these actions, particularly how quickly the situation deviates from what appeared to be the planned arrangement. Small details, such as pauses in movement and coordination between security and vehicles, have contributed to why the moment gained attention. As the scene unfolds, it becomes part of wider online discussion, largely because of how public figures' movements are interpreted in real time and how quickly assumptions form from short clips. Some viewers connect these moments to earlier public comments and expectations, while others caution that such interpretations are often incomplete without full context. As with many celebrity situations, different audiences draw different conclusions based on limited visible information. Overall, the moment gained attention less for what was explicitly said and more for how it appeared when viewed externally and discussed across social media platforms. Some fans had suggested that Cardi B's tour could serve as a fresh start, an opportunity to refocus, move forward, and shift into a new chapter. Because of that, certain recent public moments have led to renewed discussion about whether that transition is actually happening in the way people expected. Instead, the conversation online has started to circle back to familiar patterns. Rather than focusing only on past events, many viewers are now questioning why similar discussions continue to resurface around her public appearances and personal life. At one of her shows, Cardi B made a lighthearted comment that was widely circulated online. While it was clearly said in a joking context, it still became part of broader conversations about priorities and how audiences interpret public statements differently depending on tone and timing. As discussions continue, some fans have also compared expectations with how situations appear externally, particularly when it comes to how public figures handle relationships and public perception. However, these interpretations vary widely and are often based on limited information rather than confirmed details. There has also been ongoing online debate about how much responsibility public figures, or those around them, have in addressing rumors or narratives that circulate on social media. In many cases, no official clarification is provided, which leaves space for speculation to grow. In parallel, earlier public moments involving Offset have been referenced by audiences as part of the broader context they use to interpret current events. Some viewers believe they notice emotional or behavioral patterns, while others caution that short clips and isolated incidents do not provide a complete picture. More recently, attention has also been drawn to online discussions involving Stefon, where timing and public appearances have led to increased speculation across social platforms. As with many celebrity situations, different audiences interpret the same moments in very different ways. Overall, the conversation reflects how quickly narratives form around public figures based on fragmented information, and how those narratives continue to evolve as new moments appear online. There have also been various reports and online discussions about unrelated issues surrounding Cardi B, which have added to the overall attention on her situation. While none of these claims are fully confirmed, they have contributed to the level of speculation already building across social media. At the same time, Offset has remained part of the wider conversation, with his own statements and appearances drawing additional focus. The timing of these moments has led some observers to question how different narratives are unfolding in parallel, although no clear connections have been established. Because of this overlap, some viewers interpret Cardi B's recent public movements in different ways. While some see them as personal choices, others view them through a broader lens shaped by ongoing discussions online. Ultimately, much of the reaction is driven by perception rather than confirmed information, highlighting how quickly public narratives can form when multiple storylines appear to intersect at once. Some viewers have interpreted recent public moments involving Cardi B in different ways, with a portion of the audience suggesting that her decisions may reflect a search for stability or support. However, these interpretations are based on outward appearances rather than confirmed insight into her personal perspective. From a broader viewpoint, repeated public interactions can sometimes lead audiences to perceive patterns, even when the full context is not available. What may appear to be a sequence of connected events can also be the result of separate circumstances being viewed together over time. In highly visible situations, every movement is closely observed. Moments are recorded, replayed, and discussed across platforms, which often leads to a wide range of conclusions, some grounded, others more speculative. One factor that stands out is how quickly public perception can shift. Interactions that seem distant at one point may appear closer at another, depending on timing, setting, and limited visual context. This can create the impression of inconsistency, even when the underlying reality is more complex. Public attention also plays a significant role. With large audiences watching in real time, reactions and narratives can develop rapidly, sometimes amplifying situations beyond their original scope. Additionally, Cardi B has built a public image associated with confidence and independence. When certain moments appear to contrast with that image, it naturally leads to increased discussion, not necessarily as criticism, but as a reflection of how audiences compare present actions with past perceptions. Overall, the conversation highlights how public figures are often interpreted through a combination of past image, present moments, and audience expectations, many of which are shaped without full visibility into the complete situation. All of these moments together explain why the conversation continues to gain attention. It is no longer centered on a single appearance or headline, but rather on a series of public interactions that audiences are interpreting collectively over time. At this stage, many viewers are less focused on individual events and more interested in understanding the broader direction of the situation. Discussions online often shift toward patterns, consistency, and how different moments appear when viewed side by side. When similar types of situations seem to occur repeatedly, it naturally leads to increased curiosity. For some supporters, the reaction is not based on criticism, but on a mix of concern and expectation shaped by what they have previously seen. Cardi B's public image, built on confidence, independence, and success, plays a significant role in how these moments are perceived. Because of that, any situation that appears to contrast with that image tends to generate more attention and discussion. In many cases, audiences begin connecting different events and forming broader interpretations. This can shift the focus away from her professional achievements and toward her personal life, especially when multiple public moments occur close together. Recent attention involving Stefon has added to these discussions, largely due to timing and visibility rather than confirmed details. Some viewers expected a noticeable shift in direction following earlier events, while others emphasize that public appearances do not always reflect the full reality behind the scenes. It is also important to recognize that no one outside the situation has complete information. Public clips, images, and brief interactions often represent only a small portion of a much larger context. At the same time, the level of public attention introduces additional pressure. When millions of people are watching and reacting in real time, even small moments can quickly become widely discussed topics. This can influence how situations are perceived and how narratives develop. Overall, the ongoing conversation highlights how repeated visibility, combined with audience expectations, can shape long-term public perception, even when the full picture remains unclear. Confident, independent, and in control of her path. Because of that, moments that appear to contrast with that image naturally draw more attention, not necessarily because people expect perfection, but because they are comparing current situations with what they have seen from her before. This is one of the reasons the conversation continues to grow. It is no longer focused on a single moment or headline, but on a collection of public appearances that audiences are interpreting together over time. When viewed as a whole, these moments can create the impression of an ongoing, unresolved narrative. At this point, many observers are less focused on individual situations and more interested in understanding the overall direction. Discussions often center on consistency, decision-making, and how different events appear when placed side by side. When similar situations seem to repeat, it naturally leads to more questions. For many supporters, the reaction is not rooted in criticism, but in a mix of curiosity and concern shaped by what they have previously seen. There is also a strong awareness of how far Cardi B has come in her career. Her growth and success have set certain expectations, which is why public moments that seem unclear or inconsistent tend to stand out more. As a result, conversations can shift away from her professional achievements and toward her personal life, especially when multiple events happen within a short period of time. This shift in focus is largely driven by how audiences interpret visible moments rather than by confirmed information. Recent attention involving Stefon has added to these discussions, primarily due to timing and visibility. Some viewers expected a noticeable change in direction following earlier events, while others emphasize that public appearances do not always reflect the full reality. At the same time, it is important to recognize that much of what is being discussed is based on limited perspective. No one outside the situation has full access to what is happening privately. Overall, the situation highlights how public perception is formed through a combination of past image, present moments, and ongoing audience interpretation, all evolving in real time. Social media clips, footage, and headlines often present only fragments of a situation rather than the full context. While they capture real moments, they do not always provide the complete picture of what is happening behind them. Even so, visible moments can still influence how the public interprets events. In many cases, these interpretations tend to shape wider conversations, even when information is limited or incomplete. At the moment, much of the discussion reflects more uncertainty than clarity. A recurring theme in online conversations is the idea of personal boundaries and self-perception. Viewers often project expectations onto public figures based on how situations appear externally, especially when emotions, relationships, or conflict are involved. These expectations are not always about judgment, but rather about how people interpret behavior through their own perspectives. When situations are viewed publicly, even small changes in interaction or timing can be read as significant. If outcomes appear inconsistent or unresolved, audiences may begin to connect separate moments into a broader narrative, whether or not those connections are confirmed. Public pressure also plays a role. With millions of people observing and reacting in real time, interpretations can spread quickly and shape collective perception. This can amplify certain narratives and make individual moments feel more significant than they might be in isolation. Another factor is public image. Cardi B has established a reputation built around confidence and independence, which influences how audiences respond to anything that appears to contrast with that image. These reactions are often based on comparison between past perception and present moments, rather than complete context. Overall, the ongoing discussion reflects how modern audiences interpret fragmented public information, combining visibility, perception, and expectation into broader narratives that continue to evolve over time. All of these factors combined explain why the conversation continues to gain attention. Rather than being centered on a single moment or isolated headline, it is now shaped by multiple public appearances and events that audiences are viewing together as part of a broader narrative. At this stage, the discussion is less about individual incidents and more about perceived patterns over time. Many viewers are trying to make sense of how these moments connect and what direction the overall situation appears to be taking based on what is visible publicly. When similar types of situations appear repeatedly, it often leads to increased public curiosity. Some audiences interpret this through a critical lens, while others view it more as general interest shaped by limited information. There is also recognition of Cardi B's achievements and public success. Because of her established career and influence, any personal developments tend to receive heightened attention and analysis from audiences who have followed her journey over time. As a result, conversations can shift from her professional work toward interpretations of her personal life, especially when multiple public moments are discussed together across social media platforms. This shift is often driven by perception rather than confirmed context. Recent attention involving Stefon has further contributed to this ongoing discussion, mainly due to timing and visibility. However, interpretations vary widely, and different audiences draw different conclusions from the same publicly available information. It is also important to note that public-facing content such as clips, images, and headlines provides only a partial view of any situation. The full context behind events is not always visible, which makes definitive conclusions difficult. Overall, the situation reflects how modern public narratives are formed, through repeated exposure to fragmented moments that are gradually interpreted into larger stories by audiences over time. Social media clips, footage, and short headlines often show only fragments of a situation rather than its full context. While these moments are real, they do not always represent the complete picture behind them. Even so, visible moments are often enough to shape public perception. At times, those interpretations can generate more uncertainty than clarity, especially when audiences begin connecting separate events into a larger narrative. In many online discussions, themes such as personal boundaries and self-perception frequently emerge. Audiences often analyze public behavior through their own perspectives, especially when situations involve emotion or visible tension. When events appear inconsistent or open to interpretation, people may begin to compare them with past patterns they believe they have observed. This can lead to broader conversations about repetition, change, and perceived direction over time. Public attention also plays a significant role in how these narratives develop. With millions of viewers reacting in real time, even small moments can quickly gain amplified meaning. This can influence how situations are discussed and interpreted across platforms. Another factor is public image. Cardi B has established a reputation built on confidence and independence, which naturally shapes how audiences respond when current moments appear to contrast with that image. These reactions are often based on comparison between past perception and present visibility, rather than full context. As discussions continue, attention often shifts away from individual events and toward broader interpretations formed from multiple moments viewed together. However, these interpretations remain subjective and vary widely among different audiences. It is also important to recognize that public content, whether clips, images, or headlines, represents only a partial view of any situation. The complete context is not always available, which limits how accurately outside observers can understand what is happening. Overall, the ongoing conversation highlights how modern public narratives are formed through fragmented information, repeated exposure, and collective interpretation over time. In many online discussions, themes like self-worth and personal boundaries often come up. Audiences frequently interpret public moments through their own perspective, especially when situations appear emotionally complex or open to interpretation. When certain patterns seem to repeat over time, viewers may begin to connect earlier moments with current ones. This can create broader narratives about change, consistency, or perceived cycles, even when the full context is not available. There is also a wider conversation that often develops around identity and relationships in the public eye. For high-profile figures, personal connections can sometimes become part of how audiences interpret stability, decision-making, or public direction. Because of this, expectations are often formed based on past perception. When current moments appear different from that established image, it naturally leads to discussion and comparison among viewers. At the same time, it is important to recognize that public figures are still individuals making real-time decisions under pressure. Those decisions can be influenced by many factors that are not visible to the public, including personal emotions and private circumstances. This is why interpretations from the outside can vary so widely. Some people focus on patterns, while others emphasize the limitations of viewing only fragments of a situation. Ultimately, public attention tends to build narratives over time, shaped by repeated visibility and audience interpretation. As a result, each new moment is often viewed in relation to previous ones, whether or not they are directly connected. At this stage, much of the discussion centers on observation rather than conclusion, with audiences continuing to react as new public moments appear and the broader picture continues to evolve.